Our evac point is just on the other side of this building in the Rose Garden area, just to the right of Lawson Field Theatre. Obviously, if it's an earthquake, you'll need to drop, cover and hold first. Okay, ask that people have their mobile phones off. We're all guilty of it from time to time, so there's your reminder. Wharepaku toilets, you would have passed them on your way in, so just back out the main door here and around to your right. We have got some handouts. Dale's going to talk a little bit about those after, so our candidate information handbook, but we've also got these online and we encourage people to go there as a first port of call. Lots of other information about the elections and about being a councillor, etc. So you'll find all that stuff on our Vote Gizzy NZ website, and that'll take you through to all that information. We've got a number of presentations tonight, and we just ask that as we go through those presentations, if you could hold on to your questions, keep them in your mind or write them down, and there'll be an opportunity to ask our presenters questions at the conclusion of their presentation. There will be tea and coffee to follow, some refreshments after our hui. I'd like to thank and welcome our presenters here tonight. So we've got our Chief Executive, Nadine Thatcher-Swan, Chief Executive Council, and she'll be doing a presentation on all the important things, a bit of a council overview, etc. Also got Dale Oskowski here. I refer to Dale, worked with Dale for a long time as the godfather of elections. If you haven't figured it out yourself and read the legislation, you can always go to Dale to get a really firm opinion on something. So thanks for coming along, Dale. It's pleasure to have you here tonight. And Dale's our electoral officer of these forthcoming elections. Heather Conn, hi Heather. For those who don't know Heather, Heather's our Democracy and Support Services Manager. She'll be doing a presentation tonight as well, really covering those things that if you are elected, then what? And we've got really grateful to have Jim Green and David Scott here from Hauora Tairawhiti. So of course those elections are incorporated with the local body elections at the same time. So they'll give us a bit of an overview from the Hauora Tairawhiti perspective. Thank you for that. So without further ado, our program's pretty straightforward, and you'll see that as you go through, I'll get Heather to flick over the slides. So we've got a council overview, the election process, which Dale will look after, what you do if you're elected, and that's here, and Hauora Tairawhiti, and then we'll have some refreshments to conclude the night. But thank you again for coming along. And I'll hand over to... We are live streaming, apologies. Yes, we are live streaming this, so yeah, you can go onto YouTube and look for Gisborne District Council, and you'll see the live streaming there. So you need to, they are Council's website? Yeah, Council's website. And because we are live streaming, if we can encourage you to use the mics, it's pretty straightforward, just button.
Well, kia ora koutou, tēnā koutou, kua tai mai nei ki tēnei hui. Nau mai haramai ki Wainganui o kia mātou mo te kaimahi o te kaunihira. Ko Nadine Thatcher-Swan taku ingoa, he mokopuna wau o Ngāti Porou, and I'm the Chief Executive for the Gisborne District Council. So welcome you all. It's very exciting to see our potential new candidates running for this council, potential new prospective employers of myself actually, which is why I have a vested interest in this process. So what I'm going to be doing is taking you through what council is all about and the business of council, and just at a high level overview, what happens by way of prospective information. We are required to produce a report that comes from the Chief Executive around the challenges, opportunities and the financial statements, so that when you come into council, if you are elected, or through your election campaign, and you have some information around basically the state of council. So I'm going to kind of canvass some of the issues at a very high level, but that report, which is called a pre-election report, will be available. It's normally, legislation is around 2nd of August, but we're looking at bringing it out about July. Local government, for those of you that don't know, is a creature of statute. And our purpose is enshrined in what most of us staff have handy, bookmark to that as a Local Government Act. And so in that Act, it outlines the specific purpose of local authorities, which is around enabling democratic decision-making and action by and behalf of the communities. And under this new government, the National Government removed wellbeing, and the Coalition Government has just recently put the requirement to promote the social, economic, environmental and cultural wellbeing of our communities in the present and in the future. So that's just come in this year as a key purpose for local government. So what that basically means, and then supported by a number of other principles and requirements in the Local Government Act, is that we are a participatory democracy. So so the difference between the two, representative democracy is you are appointed and therefore you speak on behalf of everyone else. A participatory democracy requires us to engage with your community, gather their views and input into decision-making processes in order to come to an outcome. And that is what local government is about. These are some of the principles as you come into council that we support our elected members with, is around transparency and accountability. So hence why meetings are open to the public. We have an appointment process where you can request official information. So that kind of gives effect to that whole idea around transparency and accountability. I spoke a bit about communities' interests now into the future. Decision making is around the impact of the decisions on wellbeing. There is a requirement to look at ways and foster Māori contribution to decision making. So that is a key component of the Local Government Act. To act with sound business practices. So commercial transactions that you enter in, you should be applying those sound business practices. So thinking about that as your role as elected members, and for the Gisborne District Council, we have what is called a CCTO, which is a council-controlled trading organisation, otherwise known as Gisborne Holding Limited. So that is part of our commercial arm. Prudent stewardship, which gives rise to making sure that you have effective planning mechanisms in place. So some of you may be involved or aware of the spatial planning work that our team is doing. This is in order to inform future rules around and development around our city. And also through doing everything that you're doing, you should be taking a sustainable development approach. So the decisions that you make today will impact on the future. So who are we as a council? So we're a unitary authority, and so we're one of 6 in New Zealand. That means that we take what territorial local authority responsibilities, so things like libraries, pools, parks, water supply, rubbish collection. That is traditionally what you would call a territorial local authority role. And then we also have regional council roles. So you might have Bay of Plenty Regional Council, or you have Hawke's Bay Regional Council. Those roles are more to do with regional land transport, science functions, regional consents to do with forestry, civil defence, emergency management. That's part of our regional function. So we're quite unique in that sense that we've got both those functions and responsibilities combined into one entity. And with that comes some rules. So the requirement for council for its decision-making processes to make sure that our regulatory responsibilities are separated, to make sure that there is no kind of conflict or crossover in the two. Which is why you have some really interesting situations if, for example, my wastewater treatment plant operators breached a condition of their consent, I may have another arm within council sting them for that and take it and prosecute it. It becomes quite tense in certain situations in a unitary, but it is a great and I think an efficient vehicle to deliver what the community needs. So you have the council and the community have about but there's about 300 dedicated staff members that work in various parts of the organisation, servicing our population, and we'll come more on to around the ward and elected members later on, but we have 5 wards and 14 elected members, which one is in there at large. So this is a lovely internal organisational structure, which kind of gives effect to all the activities that council operates. So we have 19 activities, and we've arranged I've arranged the organisation according to hubs. So we currently have 6 hubs with particular responsibilities, of which we have 5 directors and a chief financial officer. One is around transformation and relationships. So that's basically where our strategy, our engagement, our annual plan, long-term plan, civil defence responses, that comes out of that area. Another area is our lifelines, which if you think in a traditional sense would be your engineering and works area that covers 3 waters and transport. We have our finance and affordability hub, so that looks after the money and the money side of things, risk and business intelligence. We have our environmental services and protection, so this is our consents, compliance, monitoring, our monitoring area. And we have our internal support, of which Heather and James leads the internal partnerships team, and the democracy governance support comes out of that area, along with information needs, health and safety, legal. And then we have our livable community, so that's our parks, open space, schools, library, kind of stuff that makes our place a cool place to live. So we're a big business. We're about $100 million, $108 million we're looking at for 2020 in terms of income. We collect about $6 million of rates from our rate payers, and we need to be accountable as to by those rates. And some of the major projects that have been identified up here have been on the box majority, but large number of them for a very long time. We will be rehabilitable, and we've got a shortfall of about $28 million that we need to find to be able to address our ageing pool. Otherwise, we're likely to be looking at closing that in the near future because of the access requirements for that pool. But we have been very successful lately in acquiring funding. We know that we've managed to secure substantial amounts of money from the Provincial Growth Fund to deliver all work. And we are building our relationship with other funders in the region. So I've just kind of briefly canvassed what we do under those high-level headings, 19 activities that we deliver on. And so we come to our money. And as required by our Local Government Act, the council needs to set a financial strategy. And that financial strategy puts limits on rates and limits on debt, or caps on debt. And it asks the local authority to outline how it's intending to spend its money, or to fund the money, or to fund the activities going forward. So at a high level, council has workshop and agreed to 6 financial strategic direction, which the first one is around the focus being on critical activities and infrastructure. So probably about 39% of our expenditure is on roads. So, and then the other majority is on free water infrastructure. So we're doing well in that area with clear focus on critical activities and infrastructure. Our second strategic direction is around keeping rates affordable as practical. And so that is where the 5% to Thrive kind of concept came in when we went out through our WTF Protect campaign, was looking at what we needed to fund infrastructure going forward, and the council agreed that 5% would be the cap on any rates increases. The third direction there is around alternative revenue streams, so we can't rely I come in. Fourth one is around managing debt prudently. So we have a debt cap, and that debt cap is $85 million for the first 3 years of our long-term plan, thereafter rising to $105 million to fund major. Number 5 is around the beneficiaries of the service pay for the cost. So that's basically if you are going to receive the service, consent is a really good example. If you need a building consent, you shall pay for that. And then number 6 is around growing the rating base, which is basically our economic development contribution. How can council support economic development initiatives in order to attract more people to our wonderful place in order to then pay rates? Feel free, if you've got any questions, just jump on in there. So what this picture is just from our long-term plan, and it's just a high-level overview around our budget projections over the next 10 years, which will have an annual plan adopted by council in June. So it slightly changes the numbers, not too much, but the provincial growth funding isn't fully reflected in there, so it might be 20 million, 30 million short in that projection. But like I said, big business, $108 million, averages around $90 million per annum in revenue. We've got $2 billion worth of assets. So you really kind of, if you're looking at running accounts, you really got to get your head around the magnitude of the business that you're coming into. Okay, so it's just about governance, and again, this will be, I think this is canvassed more by Dale. So we have, the mayor, which is elected at large, and 13 councillors elected from 5 wards. We have 6 weekly council meetings. So every 6 weeks, council meeting, and then we have 10 committees. This is all subject to change when we go through triennial elections. Structures of committees are open for discussion and agreement by the new elected members that come in, and we are looking at options around reduction in the number we currently have. Those options will be provided in the future. So here is just a little calendar around what a typical 6 months will look like. Some of the meetings that are put in there under the current status quo. But as I said, it could potentially change. So what council does, and I'm just going to quickly lightly touch on the role of the mayor and the role of elected members, and also the role of myself, staff. So the role of the mayor there is a specific piece in the Local Government Act which outlines the responsibilities of the mayor, and this is basically around leading the development of plan policies and budgets. But whilst that says that's the role of the mayor, in order to get anything approved, the mayor needs the support of the elected members. So very much decision making is a collaboration with the mayor and elected members. And the mayor has a right also, I think that's captured up here, but to appoint their chairs to committees and as a spokesperson of council. The elected members, along with the mayor, so all elected members, and I include the mayor in this one, sets policy and the strategic direction of council and monitor the performance of council. So it's really important to understand the difference between the governance and the management responsibilities. So governance, strategy, policy, overall direction, management delivers the operationalises that direction. As an elected member, you're there to represent the interests of the whole district. So while you might come into council from a particular ward, you are asked to make decisions on behalf of the community. So to a certain, well, we are asking that you put your individual kind of ward bias aside and do what is best on behalf of the constituents. Your role as elected members, you have one employee, and that is me. And I employ everyone else. So I am your conduit for operational matters. And as elected members, we are asked that you're required to abide with any legislation that is set out, and there is a lot of it. So let's just talk about the role of the Chief Executive and staff. So my role is to implement decisions and implement your decisions, and the role of myself and that of staff is to provide you with expert advice in order for you to make the decisions that you are capable of making. We may not agree with what those decisions might be, but that's the role of staff. Our role is to make sure you have the advice and information that you need. My role as Chief Executive is to make sure that our duties are properly performed and that we follow our legal requirements. I did mention particularly because we're unitary, my duty is to ensure that we separate out our regulatory responsibilities, the decision-making process. So, for example, in our instance, there is almost what we have a war between myself and our director who looks after any prosecution-related matters. He has delegated authority and needs to consult with me, but he can make a decision around prosecution or not. And that avoids this whole situation where you might have around a perceived conflict or pressure being put unduly to try and influence a legal prosecution outcome. So there's some checks and balances. I didn't really explain that well, but it's just so that you're aware that there is a pretty strong regulatory arm that needs to be quite separate and away from political interference. So my other responsibility is to employ staff and negotiate their terms of employment and make sure that I'm reviewing public stewardship, public service with staff. So again, creature of statute, this is all specified in the Local Government Act about the roles and responsibility of chief. So how we work together, and there are lots of documents that outline how we are supposed to work together, from a local government statement, a code of conduct, standing orders, we have council and committee delegations. It's about what you can talk about in particular committees and what you can't. I get you to approve staff delegations. There's a whole lot of other legislation that is there to keep us safe. But most importantly, it's really about how we work together as a governance body and as a management organisation to deliver what the community needs. So that's about having clear comms. That's also about having clear expectations and about having a respectful relationship around the council chambers. So, future focus, and then the pre-election report will go in a bit more detail around some of the opportunities and challenges ahead of us. So, we're probably not doing a really good job talking about all the legal stuff that you need to be aware of, but actually council, for me in particular as the Chief Executive and from here deeply ingrained in the community and coming home, this is one of the most fulfilling jobs I have ever had. And I think that there is so much opportunities in this community, and to be part of leading the change is such an exciting thing. So if I can sell it in that sense, you can move past all the legalities around what you can and can't do. The potential impact for this community is great, and that is why you're sitting around here. So for us going forward, we've got a number of opportunities. Obviously, the provincial growth is a huge one for us, tapping into the funding there, and we're fortunate enough to have a senior regional officer based here in Tairāwhiti that's working with us around identifying opportunities for the funding. But we do have a changing legislative environment. So some of you may have been involved last year with the June floods and, the Queen's Birthday floods, and the wood and our civil defence emergency, and then there's been a whole review that's happened in that space that's putting additional requirements on us to make sure that we can respond in case of an emergency that's impacting nationally. The coalition government has some really clear expectations around our environment, and we've seen the zero carbon bill that's come out that will impact on the way we do things. Similarly around water quality. The Department of Internal Affairs are running a Three Waters review that was prompted out of the Havelock North issue. And so looking at whether there are large water providers who council continue to deliver water to communities, is there a regulator around water quality. Climate change I've mentioned, we've got some growth challenges. So we're a medium growth region, which is varies of the test too. It's been something he's been quite hot on where we've been saying, oh, the numbers aren't showing it, but we are a medium growth, we're pushing it high, and that challenges of being able to provide for that growth through consenting, but also the infrastructure, additional infrastructure that will be required will be a challenge for us too. A fortunate challenge, but a challenge for us at best. Post-treaty settlements put additional requirements, but it's an opportunity to work in partnership with iwi around the development of our region. We have increasing employment relation requirements, health and safety is a biggie, and then obviously the funding and financing and sustainability going forward. But all good meaty stuff to get engaged and involved. So are there any questions from me, and then for me, and then I'll hand it over to Dave. One more slide. Oh, that's over the slide. Oh, okay, sorry, this is a major opportunity too. Something really exciting, I'm really excited about this stuff, is Best for Region. So Best for Region is the work that Council had agreed with the Eastern Community Trust to progress. So how can these entities unlock this collective potential? So we're both sitting on major assets, and ultimately, well, Council is the ultimate capital beneficiary from the Eastern Community Trust, so chose to wind up. And so there is an MOU that had been created recently between the Council and the Eastern Community Trust to look at ways where we can unlock that economic potential through looking at our commercial arms. So Eastern Holding Limited is now part of that Best for Region approach, and the Eastern Group. So there's significant opportunities in there for Eastern going forward, and be a big piece of work following the elections.
Kia ora, Tau. Tonight I'm just going to talk about more the nuts and bolts of standing as a candidate for the elections. So I'll just start with some general electoral information just to set the scene before I get into more of the details. So Gisborne District Council, population just under 50,000 people, electors just over 33,000 electors. Election day, it's the second Saturday in October every 3 years, so it's a prescribed date, and that's occurring on the 12th of October this year. And we are holding elections for Gisborne District Council, which is going to be under first past the post electoral system, which I'll talk a bit shortly, and Hauora Tairāwhiti, which is going to be under the STV, single transferable voting system. The elections are still required to be held under postal voting. Unfortunately, we can't have any electronic or online voting this time round. We did have a good push at that, but we're not successful on that one. So there will be postal voting, but of course people can still hand deliver their votes to various locations if they want to hand deliver it rather than relying on New Zealand Post. Order of candidate names, that's going to be random this time. So legislation currently allows councils and district health boards to choose the order between alphabetical pseudo-random, so once nominations close, we put the names into a hat, we draw them out, and that's what everyone gets. That's called pseudo-random. And purely random is where every voting paper has a different order. So the computer generates that. So both the District Council and the District Health Board have resolved to have the purely random order. So that's some background information. Key election dates that we all need to be aware of. Friday the 19th of July, nominations open. That's not too far away, that's less than 6 weeks away. So nominations will open on the 19th of July. They will close 4 weeks later on Friday the 16th of August at noon. They will close. Then on the 20th of September, which is a Friday, we'll start delivering the voting packs out to everyone to their letterboxes. And that's when voting officially starts. As I said earlier, Saturday the 12th of October, close of voting, that's at 12 noon. We'll declare the results, the official results on the 17th of October, and the elected members will come into office on the 22nd of October. So what are we electing? We're electing for Gisborne District Council, the Mayor is elected at large. As we heard earlier, we've got 13 councillors from 5 wards, and there they all are there. Gisborne, of course, with 9, and the other 4 with 1 member each, 1 councillor each. Aurora Tairāwhiti, 7 members elected at large, so from the whole district. Council did undertake a representation arrangements review in 2018. Went on to the Local Government Commission, and there was a determination of no change, so the status quo applies for the 2019 triennial election. Mentioned earlier about the 2 electoral systems. This is a very, very brief overview. Both are being used. First past the post, we're all very familiar with that one, I suspect. Vote by ticking the candidate names up to the maximum number of vacancies. So if there's 3 vacancies or 7 vacancies, we would able to tick up to that number. And the candidates with the highest number of votes wins. And this is to be used for Gisborne District Council. So we're all very familiar with that one. The Aurora Tairāwhiti is using, or indeed all district health boards in New Zealand must use STV, single transferable voting. It's a form of preferential voting. You vote by ranking candidates in order of preference. So you start with 1. If there's 15 names, you can go 1 to 15, you can go 1 to 7, you can go 1 to 3, just whatever your preference is. But you must start with a 1 and you can't duplicate a number. So if you go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, we will count up to 1, 2, 3 as your preferences. And those 6 successful candidates under STV must achieve a quota. So it's quite a complicated system, but really all electors really need to know is it's preferential. You just order them 1, 2, 3, 4 in your order of preference. The electoral roll, we actually have 2 electoral rolls. A lot of people don't realise that. The main one is our resident electoral roll, and that has just over 33,000 electors. That's common enrolment with the parliamentary roll. So basically, if anyone enrolls onto the parliamentary roll, we get that information provided to us by the Electoral Commission. You must be a New Zealand citizen or permanent resident, aged 18 or over, resided continuously in New Zealand for 1 year or more, and resided at an address for 1 month or more. So the electoral, as I said, the Electoral Commission gives us that data. They do a really good job. They will be writing out to everyone in the beginning of July this year, just checking that they have all the details correct. So you will get a letter from them early July. The second roll is a much smaller roll. It's called the ratepayer electoral roll. I like to call it the non-resident ratepayer electoral roll. So it's really for non-resident electors. So as an example, someone may live in Napier and they get all their voting entitlements in Napier, but they own a property here. So they can actually apply to get onto the ratepayer roll in Gisborne and vote in Gisborne. So it's for non-resident electors. It's updated every 3 years. The big thing here is it's by application. It's not automatic. So
Which is why the number looks extraordinarily low.
very, very low. So we have to do all sorts of things by legislation to raise awareness of this. I've got some brochures over on the table there about the ratepayer roll. but the uptake is not large right across New Zealand. We find generally that the councils that have a much bigger ratepayer role are your holiday spots like Taupo, Thames Coromandel, Queenstown Lakes, those sort of places where there's a lot of holiday places. But yes, very low. We'd love to see that increase significantly, tenfold. Would be great. Sorry, electoral officers across New Zealand under our legislation have that responsibility.
Good question.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to that. So it is a nationwide issue, as Dale mentioned, and that's not an excuse, it's just a fact. I'm really hot on this topic because and Dale knows this about me, what we do know as councils, we actually send out the rates notices, so we know that there are non-resident people. So potentially up to between 3,500. You know, but this is, and we said, so we've just done a big campaign to get information to people. I find the legislation's a little bit clunky in this area personally. I think that the process is cumbersome, and that's potentially why it's a nationwide issue and people don't get enrolled. We're trying to make that as simple and easy for people as possible. So sort of almost spoon feeding that process as much as we can, so people don't have to run around to find their valuation number. We'll put it on the form. We're starting to see some results in that space. It's something that's a continuous fight and battle, and I just don't think there's enough understanding out there that people, if you own a property somewhere, you have the right to vote as a non-resident ratepayer. So we're certainly putting some muscle in behind that in this election. I was quite shocked to see that it was as low as that. So I previously worked for a council that had potentially up to 1,400 non-resident ratepayers and could only get that roll over the 15 years I was involved up to 180. So it is a massive challenge, but one we're putting some, like I say, some muscle in behind and helping on trying to get it raised up, because people, it's democracy. So yeah, that's all I'll say about it, but we are doing a lot. Big mail outs, using the national campaigns. You'll see some material coming out, webisodes, and just trying to drum up a bit more awareness around it in education.
Yeah, the goal. That's zero.
Yeah, it's always
Zero
the goal. We, as much as humanly possible, but yeah, the goal would be for any non-resident role that everyone who's got a right to should enrol and do it. So I don't want to put a figure on that, but certainly more than people. Thank you.
James is. They live in Australia, and
Yes.
and they have a property here. They are ratepayer. Yes, they can apply. Yes. So
Yes.
there is an enrolment form which is quite complicated. It's a statutory form, unfortunately. James is quite right. The whole system needs an overview because it is very complicated, hard to understand, hard to fill out, and people just can't be bothered. And that's why we have such a low number. So I think it's a very good point that we should be pushing in 3 years, prior to 3 years' time, to have a review of this. It does require legislative change, but lots of things do, to get it reviewed basically and get it streamlined.
And can I just say on that matter that we've contacted all the overseas people as well in order to try and get this up. So yeah, people in Australia, Scotland, Ireland, you name it, we've posted to them as well. Thank you.
So on to candidate eligibility. Candidates for council must be a New Zealand citizen, must be aged over 18 and enrolled on any parliamentary electoral role in New Zealand. So you don't actually have to be living in the district. You can be living in Invercargill, for example, on the role anywhere in New Zealand and stand here. But of course, you must be nominated by 2 electors from the area that you're standing in. So that's the key thing. You can stand for multiple positions. You can stand for mayor, council, and the district health board. If you are elected to the mayor and council, you take the highest position naturally. But you can't stand for more than one ward. So you can't sort of cover your bets, if you like, and stand for more than one. You have to choose. Any council employee, of course, can stand. If actually elected as mayor or councillor, they must resign as an employee. Obviously, a conflict of interest there.
It's not the case for us.
District, thank you. Not the case of the District Health Board.
I was saying that you can be an employee of the District Health Board and got one at the moment.
Thank you.
There's a petition for the health board? Yeah, all health boards in New Zealand, all health boards in New Zealand.
Oops. Be aware also that for elected members or their spouses with contracts with the council over $25,000 in any one financial year, there is an issue there, so we need to be aware of that and perhaps have a discussion with the Office of the Auditor General if that's the case. So again, just be aware of that. And it's not just the elected member, it's the elected member's spouse. Additional restrictions for Hauora Tairāwhiti candidates. It is set out under legislation under Schedule 2 of the New Zealand Public Health and Disability Act and the Crown Entities Act, I think it is. You can't be a candidate, for example, if you're an undischarged bankrupt. You can actually for council if you're an undischarged bankrupt. So there's additional requirements there. Person subject to a property order and that sort of thing. You can't be an elected member for the DHB. You can only stand for one district health board in New Zealand. So if you try to stand for two, you actually get disallowed for both of those. The nomination process, open, as I said, less than 6 weeks away, 19th of July. Nomination papers will be available from the council offices here to Puia Springs Service Centre. Phone our 0800 number. You can download it from the council's website. So freely available. They sort of look like that. That's a 2016 one. Just looking at revamping that look and feel to see whether that's we can do something that's slightly more user-friendly. You can't nominate yourself, so just bear that in mind. You must be nominated by 2 electors from the area that you're standing in. So if you're standing for the Gisborne ward, you must be nominated by 2 electors from the Gisborne ward. As I said earlier, you can live outside the district, but nominated by 2 electors from the area that you're standing in. So when you lodge your nomination, you lodge your nomination paper filled out. For each position you stand for, there is a $200 deposit that includes GST. There's an ability, it's not mandatory, it is optional, but most candidates do it, and that's provide a 150-word candidate profile statement. That tells us in 150 words all about yourself, what you want to see achieved, a bit of your history or your interests and that sort of thing. It's 150 words in English, plus you can have 150 words in Maori. So you can actually, if you have both languages, you can actually have 300 words, but those 2 languages must be largely consistent. So you don't get 150 words in English saying one thing and 150 words in Te Reo saying another thing. They must largely be consistent. You can actually have other languages if you wish to, but those other languages must total 150 words. Okay, so it's only the 2 official languages that we can have 150 words each. You can also have a recent passport size photograph, colour one, that we put out with the voting packs, which is really helpful. The feedback that we have from electors is they love the 150-word candidate profile. They love seeing who the person is so that they can read those and look at that before they make their choice. So although it's optional, we strongly suggest everyone provide this. We are asking for the first time evidence of citizenship. We're not required to by law. We have had our fingers burnt after the last election where a candidate stood and got elected in Whangarei district. We did not ask for proof of citizenship. However, the form does say that it's a statutory form that you tick the box that you are a New Zealand citizen. She ticked the box, and then someone challenged that halfway through the term. She could not produce her citizenship certificate. She was from the UK. She came out when she was 2 or something. She just assumed that she was a citizen, but she was not. So we had to have a very expensive by-election. So now we are going to sort of say, look, show us proof, copy of a passport or birth certificate or citizenship ceremony, just to satisfy us and to protect the candidates that they are actually eligible to stand, because the last thing we want is to run a by-election after the event. So that's a new thing there. The $200 nomination deposit, most people get that back. It's a deposit. If you poll greater than 25% of the lowest successful candidate under first past the post, you get it back. Similarly for STV, if you poll greater than 25% of the final quota, you get it back. Most, probably 95, 98% of candidates get it back. There's only the very few that don't. If you don't get it back, the $200 is forfeited and it goes into the general fund for the running of the election. Candidates, you are able to have an affiliation. That's a party name or a name that you associate with. It could be a group or an organisation. You can have independent. So if you want to be just an independent, you can simply leave it blank. It doesn't really matter. It just gives you that opportunity to say that you are independent, you don't align with any particular grouping or party, or simply leave it blank. Sure. The nomination. The law says it must be in paper. So what we're looking at doing for this time round is that we're making the nomination paper in what we're calling editable PDF. So not eatable, but editable, so that you can actually type it out online, but you still have to print it out and bring it in. We can't submit electronically currently by law. Yeah, we'd love to, because we want to try to make it easier, but we are hamstrung by 2001 legislation, which is now pretty outdated. So I talked earlier about affiliations. There are some that we will not accept, and with affiliations, I have the final say as the electoral officer. We will discuss them, but if we can't reach agreement, nothing will appear. So anything that might cause offence, anything that likely to cause, to confuse or mislead electors, or as an election slogan, vote for Dale. I won't accept that as a affiliation. Nominations close at midday on Friday the 16th of August. That is a rigid time. There are no ifs, buts or maybes. Come noon on the 16th of August, that's it. We strongly suggest you get your nomination in earlier than the last day. We really do, because often we will check them and find that there is an error. If you, and you have to go away and correct it. If you come in at 10 to 12 on the last day and there's an error, you've got 10 minutes to get it fixed. So no good going away and coming in at 12 saying, here's my form, I came in at 10 to. Sorry, they have officially closed at midday. So we strongly urge you to get it early so that we can check it and make sure everything's good. You're required to include on your nomination your principal place of residence. So if you live in the ward or area that you're standing for, it does go out with alongside your candidate profile statement, whether you reside in the area or outside the area. And again, that gives the electors more information about you. So if you live in Invercargill, you obviously don't reside in the area. But if you're standing for Gisborne Ward and you live in Gisborne Ward, then of course we just say, yes, you are in the Gisborne Ward, and the electors will know that. Another legal requirement is that we have to tell electors if you're standing for more than one position. So if you're standing for mayor and council, we need to tell the electors that. Campaigning can occur anytime. You can be campaigning now if you wanted to. So there's no time restriction of when you can officially start. However, there is a time restriction on election signs. So that's your hoardings and that sort of thing. So election signs are permitted on private property. There are 7 council-owned designated sites, but there is a display period of 6 weeks, so they can't go up before the 31st of August. All right. So that's, you can campaign now, you can make it known, you can do leaflet drops, you can do whatever you like, but you just can't put those election signs up until after the 31st of August. And they must be removed by midnight on the day before the election. We have a signs policy in our handbook, so have a look at those and make sure you comply with those. All election advertisements, that's any signs, notices, pamphlets, web pages, vehicles, etc., must show contact details of the authorised person. That does exclude posts and tweets and messages, which I'll talk shortly on, but put it on everything, please, because other candidates monitor, they watch what you do. And if you haven't got it, I'm the first to hear about it, and it may mean that you have to do some remedial action. You may have to reprint if you're doing leaflet drops in all the letterboxes and you haven't got the statement. You have to retract it and do it again. So just bear that in mind. Just play it safe. If you've got any doubts, give me a call and I'll soon tell you, or pass things by me on a confidential basis, and I'll have a look at it and I'll say, yeah, that reads all fine. That's not defamatory and all that sort of. Where's your authorisation statement? So it's always a good thing to just have that checked. Candidates or their agents must not collect voting documents from electors, please. Don't go door knocking. Don't go to rest home saying, I'm here to help. Don't do that. It's a bad look. It's a perception that you are taking those voting documents from other people and potentially interfering with them before I get them. Okay, so just don't go there. It's just not worth it. Have a read of the election offences. There's a number of them in the handbook. Have a look at those. Just be aware of them, what you can and can't do. Other candidates are aware of what you can and can't do. So it's the tittle-tattle season, so I soon know if you're doing something wrong, and I then have to enforce it. What's not on the slide, which I just wanted to talk very briefly on, is social media. This is a great way for candidates to campaign. It's instant, it's far-reaching, and it's free. So it's really a good thing to use. Use it to promote yourself, your policies. You can run polls, you can ask questions, you can encourage people to vote for you and to vote generally. Remind them of key dates. You could say in a week's time voting closes, you know, have you voted? Don't forget to do that. You can post videos, whatever you want to do to promote yourself, you should be using that. But be aware, council's media channels are off limits, so you can't associate with council's media channels. Council's media channels must be impartial, okay? They're non-political. So if you try and link anything electronically, they are monitored, it'll soon be removed. So don't try that. Just bear in mind that, you know, council must be politically neutral. Your web page, if you do a web page, place your authorisation statement on your web page only. You don't need to do every individual post or tweet or message or whatever else there is. We simply can't monitor that. Cyber security, I just wanted to mention that very quickly. Computers can be hacked, data can be stolen. Keep yourself safe. So basically just be aware of cyber security. Election expenditure, I'm going to pick up my pace here. All positions have candidate expenditure limits. It is based on population size of the area, so the mayoral candidate has a limit of 30,000, Gisborne ward 20,000, and all the other wards 3,500. So it's a statutory limit based on population, so can't exceed those. Hauora Tairāwhiti, because it's the same size as the whole district, has a $30,000 limit as well. These limits include GST. Please be mindful of that. We've had an instance of a mayoral candidate exceeded the limit because he thought it was plus GST, so they include GST. And you can't add them together. So if you're standing for the mayor and Hauora Tairāwhiti, you think, oh good, I can spend 30 plus 30 is 60,000. You can't add them together. It's the highest. Okay, just a little trap there. There is an applicable period before election day under legislation, that's the 12th of July. Any expenditure before that 3-month period must be fairly apportioned to that 3-month period. I'm happy to unpack that if anyone's got any queries on that one. Electoral expenses and donation form, that's this thing here that is attached to the back of the nominations. It's in the back of the book. It's also going to be online. That is a legal requirement. You must fill that out and you must return that to me by the 13th of December. If you haven't spent anything, you must still return it with a nil. Okay, so that is a legal requirement. If it's not returned, I do have to follow it up. It is an offence. The name goes off to the police and the police follow it up on my behalf. So it's best that everyone fills it in. Pardon me? It's the return of electoral donations and expenses. So you've got to account for all your donations or money that's come in and money that's gone out that doesn't exceed the limit. If even if put you nil, you've still got to sign it and date it and return it by law. Now these forms must be publicly available, so they go on the website, council's website, and they must be available for 7 years under law. Okay, so this is the document that people can challenge you on if they've been monitoring what you've been doing and what you've been spending, and you've put that you've spent $3,000, and they know full well that, you know, the public notices that you've just done cost $7,000. Be prepared, you know. So it is a legal document. Okay, so what that's trying to cover off is that if a candidate is, how can I put it, is smart, that they want to do a big spend up prior to the 3-month applicable period, and therefore it's outside of the 3-month period and therefore doesn't come into that limit, you can't do that. You must fairly apportion it. So you can't spend $50,000 outside the 3-month period and then you come in and spend your $3,500. That's not a goer under the legislation. Yeah. Scrutineers, candidates may appoint scrutineers. Scrutineers can observe the roll scrutiny process, which is during the voting period, through a sealed envelope. And they can observe the counting of the votes after the voting is closed. Right. Scrutineers must be aged over 18. They must be appointed before the day before the election. And it is undertaken in our offices in Auckland. All right, so that may be an issue. What we suggest is appoint someone that you might know in Auckland, a family member or a friend or something like that, that you can be appointed as a scrutineer. They can come along and view our process if they want to. Okay. We have a number of councils. We get about 50 scrutineers each training an election, just to make sure we're on doing the right thing. Pardon? We have what's called early processing. So over the voting period, we're able to open and process votes that have come back over the 3-week voting period. So we process those by undertaking the roll scrutiny to make sure that a person doesn't vote twice. We're able to scan and capture the information of the votes and preferences twice. And then we do a reconciliation to make sure we have all the votes captured perfectly, but we're not permitted to total anything. So we only total the results after the close of voting. So over that 3-week voting period, when we're doing that processing of votes, we have a JP or a number of JPs observing that process on our behalf. And those JPs sign a declaration to say, well, I've done everything correctly. And then after the voting closes, we have the scrutineers coming in, and then we run through the process of what we've been doing the last 3 weeks. Yeah. Results, voting closes at midday, as I said, on the 12th of October. Again, it's midday sharp. No ifs, buts and maybes. Once voting closes, that's it. No postmarked or anything like that votes. The law doesn't allow that. No extension is permitted. We'll have progress results at about 2 o'clock, which is about 98% of the votes cast. So we will know the results, everything basically that those that were hand-delivered on those 3 hours on the Saturday morning, we will be announcing at about 2 o'clock on the Saturday. We call that a progress result. It's not a preliminary result because we've still got votes in the system that still have to come up to us in Auckland and be counted. So candidates will be emailed, media advised and that sort of thing. It's a progress result, but it's going to be pretty indicative. Only if it's going to be really close, 10 votes in it, that you're sorry, you're going to have to wait till the next morning until we release the preliminary result to know. All right, so, but most people, 99% of people will know whether they're elected or not about 2 hours after the close of voting. Results will be available on the website. And then we do our official count, so we do everything again, and we include special votes, and we announce the results, the final results, on the 17th of October. That is our official declaration. That's it. That's the one that can be challenged if people want to. Resources, I've mentioned the Candidate Information Handbook. This is the 2019 one. I've got some copies over there if you haven't picked one up. It is available online, but this really should answer all the questions that you may want to know. It's got all the sites for your hoardings and things like that. So pick one up. If you've got any questions, please email or contact me. Have a look at the legislation, Local Electoral Act 2001, Local Electoral Regulations 2001. That's the key legislation that I'm required to work under. Attend a council meeting. It's really, I would think, quite educational and interesting. Read agendas and minutes. They're all online, so have a read of those. Talk to a council staff member. I'm sure they'll be able to help you. And my last slide there, that's me. That's where I am. And my deputy is Heather, sitting over there, locally based. So either myself or Heather, more than happy to assist you. Kia ora.
Okay. I haven't got any slides. I'm just winging it. So what happens if you're elected? And this is speaking from the Gisborne District Council point of view. It's a bit different for Hauora Tairāwhiti. So what you can expect on the day, on the 12th, after those progress results are out, is a message either by text or a phone call from one of our local electoral officials, or for the mayoral race, it will be the chief executive, just to say how you went. And it's really important to realise that induction for GDC this time will start straight away. So very likely that we'll have a pōwhiri on the Monday, and then we'll get cracking with your induction, and it will finish. Well, it won't finish actually, because it will carry on for about 6 months to the first year. But 31st of October is swearing in, and the first meeting where you confirm all of the rules and your committees and all those kind of things is the 7th of November. I have over here, so this is a reality check. These are the agendas for tomorrow's and Thursday's committee meetings. They're actually not the biggest agendas we've got, and council and future Tairāwhiti are pretty hefty reading. And that information is given to you so that you can make the best possible decision on, as Nadine has already referred to, some pretty weighty things. You can watch all our meetings live streamed, so you don't need to come in and attend, but as Dale was saying before, sometimes you don't appreciate the atmosphere until you actually come into council chambers. We have no elected members who were available to speak to you tonight on what it's like to be an elected member, but we have a bit of a backup plan on that. On this page on our web, no, they're standing, they can't. On our council webpage, Elections 2019, There are a series of 5 or 6 very informative videos from Local Government New Zealand made in part by elected members. And they certainly cover off in 55 minutes through the whole sequence what it is like to be an elected member. They talk about unitary authorities from an elected member's perspective. And I am glad to say that we are doing away with this. There are very few people that use hard copies now. All the councillors are encouraged to use iPads or Surface devices and to have electronic agendas, which we deliver through software called Docs on Tap. And yeah, you can annotate those, you can write in them, and they're your meeting documents.
Some years ago, last time round, one of the issues that I was aware of was that some of these were arriving quite late for meetings, like quite tight. What's the time frame? Is there a
2 full working days before the meeting is Lagoima, but we always have our agendas to our elected members the Friday before their meetings, and they're available for the public at 8:30 a.m. on the Monday morning before the meeting. And we're only extraordinary meetings if we ever breach that, and it's not actually a breach for an extraordinary meeting. Any other questions? Thank you.
I was wondering if, well, recently here, 1 or 2 premier, people who think premier would actually be here to answer our questions.
This is not a forum for any form of campaigning. This is simply an opportunity for us to deliver key messages about the upcoming election for candidates, okay? So they would be sitting, saying nothing like the other 2 councillors, okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is going to be a little bit of a compare and contrast exercise in that a district health board is a little bit different than a council, different piece of legislation, different setup in that regard. District health boards are set up under the New Zealand Public Health and Disability Act and the Crown Entities Act. And so there is a different responsibility level there. Although you're elected by the community, you are responsible to the Minister of Health. And the District Health Board is made up of 11 members, 7 of whom are elected by the community and 4 of whom are appointed by the Minister of Health, and who also appoints the chair and the deputy chair. So that's a sort of a start-off difference in relationship to the organisation. So in terms of district health boards, we are, like the council, very much linked into the local population. And I'm not sure if this is actually going to play, but I'm not sure what I would press to make it play, but so it probably won't, but yep, that's all right. Yeah, the whole focus is obviously around health and disability support services for the community. And that's our role as an organisation to plan for the health and independence of our populations, and provide for those services and actually fund other services as well. And I'll talk a little bit further about that. We are guided a lot by legislation. The Act is quite specific around what district health boards can do. And obviously we also very much linked back to government policy and directions set by government through various devices, including the Minister's Letter of Expectations that is put forward every year, which goes to David as the board chair at the moment, and sets out the key areas in which the government has expectations around district health boards for the year ahead. As a district health board, we have 2 principal functions. We fund services, so we fund, as the list shows there, we fund all of about 80% of the cost of general practice services here and all other primary care services through primary health organisations. We fund the iwi health providers here, that's Turanga Health, Ngāti Hauora and Hauiti Hauora. We fund most of the costs of people in rest homes and hospital care for older people, so those people who are assessed and meet the criteria for being admitted to one of those institutions and you meet the income test, that is paid for by the District Health Board. We fund home-based support services for older people, that's people age 65 and older in the community. We fund all of the community-based mental health services. We fund TLAB for your laboratory services. And we fund medicines in the community through when you get your prescription filled, apart from the $5 prescription charge and any other charges that may be associated with that. The majority of that is funded by the District Health Board. And last but not least, amounting for some $20-odd million as well, is the cost of your care. If you happen to be admitted to a hospital outside of the district or have a health service outside of the district, we pay for that as well as your District Health Board. At the same time, our funding, just over half of it goes to running the services that we as a District Health Board provide ourselves. So mainly those are through Gisborne Hospital, where we have all of those services listed there, surgery, diagnostics, mental health, etc. And also services that we provide that are based in the community, such as district nursing, school dental services, and our community-based mental health services as well. So it's that dual role, and obviously decision-making is around how we provide for those services as well as the ones that we fund. Roughly $194 million that we have coming into the District Health Board in the 18-19 year. And I think it's well known that we don't get enough money to pay for everything that we do as a District Health Board, and roughly we are spending about $204 million this year, so around about just slightly more than a $10 million deficit. Yeah, and that's for our population of the people that are living here. And again, it's people who are domiciled here, so that if you go elsewhere out of this district, we pay for your healthcare as well. So our board, as I said before, 11 members on our board, 7 elected, which is from the community using the single transferable vote system that Dale has talked about. We also, by law, have to have 3 statutory advisory committees that are listed there. They are the Community and Public Health Hospital Advisory Committee and the Age and Disability Support Advisory Committee. Those are our 3 committees by law. They are made up of board members, and the board runs a process where they have nominations from people in the community to fill the other positions on those committees, and go through a process where they appoint people to those committees for the 3 years of the term. The Hospital Advisory Committee, I would say, is not just about the hospital, it's about all of the services that the District Health Board provides, as opposed to funds in the community. There are a number of other non-statutory committees that are listed there. Principally amongst those are the Finance, Audit and IT Committee, which is looking at, obviously, at the money that is coming in, making sure that it is accounted for correctly. There is the Maori Relationship Board there, which is Te Waiora Nukutai Memiha, which is a iwi relationship board required under the Act to have a relationship between a District Health Board and iwi or Māori in the community. And in our case, that committee is made up of board members and representatives from our iwi here in Tairāwhiti and other agencies and groups such as Māori Women's Welfare League and our iwi providers within the district. And up there also is, in a box by themselves, is also just showing our iwi partnership relationships with the 2 principal iwi of Tairāwhiti. There is formalised memorandums of understanding and meetings and dialogue between ourselves and those 2 bodies, and also we have a specific relationship with the Pacific Island Community Trust here for our Pacific community within the district. Māori health is our most important issue within health. You would be aware of inequity in health outcomes for Māori, and our board and our organisation is absolutely focused in on eliminating those inequities. because it brings benefit for those people and for everybody in our district. What do board members do? I think that you have to realise that a district health board has a lot of systems and processes that are governed centrally from the Act, from the Ministry of Health, and from the government itself. But the role of the district health board's elected members is to provide that voice, that community voice, into our decision making. There is an absolute degree of discretion around what we do with that close under $200 million that we're getting from the taxpayers, and so it is important that we have that for the direction to be set, and a little bit as has already been said this evening here around that governance role about setting the direction, strategic direction and policy for the organisation, and the role of management to implement that. And we are particularly interested in, from our board, around their advice on improving health outcomes for our population. And the other role really of the board is to ensure that the minister's expectations are met, and that is, as I said, coming through from the minister's letter of expectations that is issued every year. If you're interested in any of that information, it's all on our website as well. You won't be able to read that, I'm sure. But that really is just a little bit around some of the current issues and challenges that we have. That was a summary of last financial year's issues and challenges. I would say that, as I've already said, our biggest challenge is around Māori health outcomes, and probably also up there is our financial sustainability as a district health board, and our clinical sustainability in terms of being able to have the staff and the services not only within our own organisation but within the other providers that we fund within the community here in Tairāwhiti, given that we are the third smallest district health board in the country. And although our population is growing, it certainly is not growing at the rate of larger district health boards in the country, particularly in urban areas, and funding for district health boards is based around population size and mix. So we have that issue here around population size. And now I'm going to hand over to David, so he can talk to you about being a board member.
Yes, so it was interesting listening to the way the district council was set up, and I had some time in that system, and it's almost diametrically opposed to the system that is operated in the health board area. As Jim has rightly said, the minister is actually the person that you're responsible to. So whilst the community elects people to the board, in the reality check is that the minister has already determined what the objectives are and what the outcomes are that you have to achieve in any given year. And he's the person that calls the shots, basically. So why you might stand is a personal question, really. People stand for a whole variety of reasons. But if you have a particular issue, then the health board's not the place for you, actually, because the health board is not an issues-based way that you can make change. I think the greatest thing that you can do if you are a member of the health board is to contribute to the direction that the minister has set out. And okay, that might sound a little bit twee, but in actual fact, as Jim said, there's a lot of flexibility in it. So in a general theme, like, let's just take child health. So child health is something that we fund and we work at very vigorously. So if you're interested in child health, then obviously there's a place in there for you in the context of health in its totality. The involvement in committees is quite different again to the council, because the committees do all the work. So what we've done is we have devolved the funding and the authority to spend it to the committees. And legislatively, under the Health and Disability Act, you can do that. So a committee can purchase a piece of kit or a piece of equipment up to 1.2, 1.3 million, or they can let a contract for up to 5 years, up to 3 years, up to 5 million. So when it comes to the board meeting at the end of the month, in actual fact, a large proportion of the work is already done and dusted by those various committees. And on those committees too, by the way, as Jim's explained, there are community people. So the community people actually have a voice and they have a total say and they're involved in it. We don't vote, so it's more a Māori kaupapa, I suppose, if you like. So we have discussion, a summary around the table, and if 7 people or 6 people or 8 people decide, they say it's a good idea, then it just happens. It's recorded as happened. If people don't actually approve of it, then they can actually have their name recorded, but that's about it, because, you know, it's nothing set, it's not moved, seconded and carried, that's how it operates. So it's quite a different thing. So for the councillors that come on the health board, they kind of have to change their thinking at the door when they arrive, as the way, in the modus operandi of the meeting. So my role is also a little bit different because we have a Midland regional group. So there are responsibilities outside of the area. So in the Midland area, Taranaki and Bay of Plenty, Hamilton, Lakes and ourselves, we work together a lot, not just at a governance level, but at a clinical level. And obviously Waikato is a very important piece of the equation for us, because lots of our patients get sent to Waikato, and they're, you know, so that focus, so that they're kind of like the big brother of the group, if you like. And we work together with those in that field. Also, there are meetings that a chair has to attend in Wellington. The minister calls meetings, meets with us quite reasonably regularly, 4 or 5 times a year. And also the various chairs and the chief executives meet together as well. And we follow the health plan, the national health plan for what it's worth, that's been put together. That sort of like has a bit of an overview of what we do. Have I made a difference? Well, I think it's only the team. It's not about the chair or the person in charge. It's about the trust that each member has with each other and the things that we can achieve together. We've certainly done some good things together. We've worked with Turanga Health and have a mobile clinic, which does fantastic work and does lots of work when we're asleep. They're out in the fields. They work with doing health checks with people in Leaderbrand. They go up into the forestry and they work on skid sites. So that van has actually been, I think, is something that our board can be proud of. Dialysis unit, we've managed to get that up and running, and the community health building for cancer patients. The dialysis one was really neat because up until then, people, if they had to be on permanent dialysis, they were usually in Rotorua, maybe in Rotorua. And so when we set up our unit here, a lot of the families were able to sell up and come back home again because it was such a big thing to be away. Advice is you have to be really keen on reading. If you're going to take on this, and same as you probably, we don't have bits of paper like that. For 10 years, we've had ours all on screen. So it all comes via the screen and you can write your notes on it, those kind of things. So I think that's the greatest advice I would give you, is that you've got to be absolutely and utterly committed to reading. Reading, reading, reading. Yes, ma'am.
We can talk about that one.
Big pardon?
We want to talk about that one.
Oh, okay.
You already mentioned you have to talk about.
Yeah. So you need the time. You need to understand about our health needs. Equity is the focus, as Jim said, Māori health, and improving the ability of Māori to have access to health, and also the Pacific Island group as well. We visit their centre and work with them. Reading, I've already said about that. Financial accounting is important, understanding, being able to read a spreadsheet and actually understand what that is and how it works. Asking lots of questions. Well, the way we run our meeting allows for that. And it's good if you've had some governance experience, really. By the way, although the election results are announced on that day, the board doesn't finish officially till the 4th of December. And then the first meeting of the health board is about the 12th, something like that. So there's a gap.
Are the meetings monthly?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Put that on. Just a general question, talking about making sure you have a representation of everyone. What is the youngest member you have on your
So,
board? Sorry.
beg your pardon?
What's the
Oh,
youngest
okay,
member you have on
so
your board?
this year, we organised for the CPAC and the DSAC committee to have some young people on. And so for a year, we did that. Those people contributed really well. So they were just people of your age, actually, who came from the community and participated there. We were hoping to get a connection with your youth council. So we're working with Josh to try and do that, so that we could actually bring some more people on board. It's just a matter of appointing those people to those committees. Yeah. That's it.
You still going to be able to do it next year?
No.
No, the appointed members can only be appointed for 3 terms, 9 years.
get
So,
9 years.
yeah, so there are a number of people who are not going to be on our board going forward. It's a
Probably
couple of-
five. There'll
there's some
probably be
things about
5 vacancies.
At least 2 or 3
And
of
of
these.
the
That means you're resigning it.
No, I'm not on the board.
Of the 5 vacancies, there are, of those 5, 4 of those are appointed by the minister. So there's,
Big change of guard.
big pardon?
Big change of guard.
Yeah, right.
Yes, a lot of institutional knowledge going out the door.
Mm.
Unfortunately.
Yes, and the chairs, we're going to be talking to the minister and the Ministry of Health about that, because around the country, if you need, the appointments need to be staggered. They haven't done that yet. That's us.
That's us, yeah.
Mrs. Ennis, any other questions? Any final questions?
Just want some clarification on what needs to go on that form and what doesn't.
Any expenditure that you make to get yourself elected has to be accounted. There are some exceptions